Hey Hermit, it's Dara here, and I feel like doing some tags. I haven't recorded a book tag in a while, and I'm just in that kind of silly, fun mood. It's also very autumnal today. It's already getting dark, like the lighting is low, and so I feel like I want to do like combine two that I've seen doing the rounds. I want to combine the finally fall book tag with the end of year book tag and just get myself into that mood, into that spirit, because I feel like I want some just delicious cozy reading to take place very soon, and this seems like a good place to start. So let's start with the finally fall book tag. And I'll be honest, off the top of my head, I cannot remember the original creators of these two tags, but I will pop them in. I'll find them after I finish recording and put them in the description box. So go and check that. For the original creator, go leave them some love, because I feel like we should always link back to the creators because they put so much work into something. But anyway, the finally fall book tag. Question number 1. In the fall, the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. Okay, I'm gonna have to go with The Witching Hour by Anne Rice. I don't see anybody talking about this book, but it is so good. It's the first in a trilogy. I believe the trilogy is called The Lives of the Mayfair Witches, and it is so good. I mean, it's dark, it's kind of spooky, it's depraved in places, it's highly magical though, and it is just the perfect read for spooky season if you like to theme your reading. But the settings, like, so it's set in, I believe it's set in Louisiana. It's definitely set in the South, but it's just so like visceral. The way things are described, it's like you can see it, you can feel it, you can smell it. There is no part of it that is not just full of stunning descriptions. And it's actually, so I said that it was set in the South, but actually like there are parts of it that are set around the world, because it actually tells the story of this whole dynasty of witches, and it starts like hundreds of years ago and comes to like current day. I want to say it's set in New Orleans, but maybe I've got that wrong now. Anyway, and every setting that is touched on is just so clear, it's so crisp. It's like you could close your eyes and be there. I cannot rave about this book enough. I'm gonna have to insist that more people start reading it so that we can bond about this. I want to actually finish the trilogy as like pretty soon. It's fairly high on my priority list, but I do feel like I'll need to reread this one first, because like I said, it's the first in the series and I haven't read it for a couple of years, and because it's so expansive, I think it's like 1,000 pages long or something insane like that, I don't want to feel like I'm missing important details before I move on, because the story is quite complex. Anyway, question number 2. Nature is beautiful but also dying. Name a book that is beautifully written but also deals with a heavy topic like loss or grief. I feel like I'm just going to have to point you in the direction of Colleen Hoover for this question. Off the top of my head, we have Regretting You, we have Heartbones, we have Verity, all of which deal with topics of grief, and all of which deal with topics of grief from very different angles, with very different outcomes, with a very different vibe. So I would highly recommend checking them out. You've got something for all like flavors, all preferences. So we have Regretting You, which is essentially the story of a mother and a daughter. We have Heartbones, which is the story of a young couple. And then we have Verity, which is kind of like family drama, thriller, darkness, but also love, as in like former love, letting go of love, and also new love. So not to give too much away, but I would definitely direct you that way if you're looking for stories of grief. Fall is back to school season. Share a non-fiction book that taught you something new. So the first one that comes to mind is intuitive eating, and the author's name escaped me right now, but again, I will make sure all of that information is linked in the description. I started reading this, I want to say like March or April of this year, and oh my god, did it give me some serious clarity on the way that I have been viewing like food, dieting, my body, my self-worth, all of that stuff. I had not quite realised how much of my behaviour how much of my emotional well-being was so like enmeshed with this like fabricated diet culture that we're all surrounded by. And that was very, very eye-opening for me. So definitely that one is a really informative read. It's not necessarily the easiest of reading experiences, simply because you're encouraged to do work that can feel very uncomfortable, but a really interesting read. In order to keep warm, it's good to spend some time with the people we love. Name a fictional family, household, or friend group that you'd like to be a part of. So the first thing that comes to mind when I think of families that I've wanted to be a part of is 8 Cousins by Louisa May Alcott. And again, this is not a book that you hear talked about very much. Of course, everyone's always raving about Little Women, but I really preferred 8 Cousins. So this tells a story of a young girl called Rose who is orphaned, and when she's orphaned, custody is given to her uncle, who she's never really met. He's I believe he's a merchant. He's been traveling the world for all of her life, but her parents wanted her to be taken care of by him. But he doesn't really know a lot about women. He doesn't really know a lot about children. But luckily, he has this extended family that can help him out. A lot of aunts and a lot of cousins. So there are he lives with his 2 elderly aunts, and then in the surrounding area there are also aunts who are I don't know if some of them are sisters or some of them are sisters-in-law, but they just refer to them all as the aunts. And each of these aunts has sons. So there are no girls in the family. Rose is the only girl, but she now has these 7 male cousins. And so she has to go and start this whole new life, and she's very used to being inside and taken care of, and she doesn't really know how to do anything practical. She's not very outdoorsy. She doesn't really know how to interact with all of these rambunctious boys. And it was just a lovely story. I loved all of the aunts, I loved all of the cousins, I loved the family vibes, I loved Uncle Alec, who's the one who has custody of her, and how much he loves Rose and how much Rose loves him. And it's just delicious. I would describe it definitely as aimed at a younger audience, maybe middle grade-ish, but I could reread it every year and be perfectly happy. It's just lovely. The colourful leaves are piling up on the ground. Show us a pile of fall-coloured spines. Please hold the line. Here you go. More dog hairs, sorry about that. But we have some fall-coloured spines, so let's see what is on this stack. Okay, we have Daisy Jones and the Six. It's autumnal from this angle. Rosetta by Barbara Ewing. The Lost Souls Reunion by Suzanne Power. The Luminous Life of Lily Aphrodite. Please excuse those hideous stickers. Nights at the Circus by Angela Carter. And The Seal Woman's Gift by Sally Magnuson. Fall is the perfect time for some storytelling by the fireside. Share a book wherein someone is telling a story. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is for sure The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And I know there will be many other books that I've read in my life that are somebody telling a story, but this has definitely been the most recent, so it is the most front of mind. Of course, we all know the synopsis of Evelyn Hugo at this point. There is this super glamorous but super reclusive Hollywood star who is giving her first interview in many, many years, and has handpicked the reporter who's going to do this interview, and she is promising to tell the full story, to spill all the tea, to go really deep and really honest about every single thing that has taken place in her life, in her career. So a lot of it is told from the perspective of Evelyn Hugo recounting her history. The nights are getting darker. Share a dark, creepy read. So recently I read a book called White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi, and that was definitely dark and creepy. I can't say I enjoyed it because I didn't, but it definitely fits the brief for this. And what I will say is that although I didn't necessarily have a fun time reading that book, I have to commend the way it was written. It was very beautifully done. It was very masterfully done, and I believe she was actually only 23 when she published that book, which of course is extra impressive. And while, like I said, it wasn't particularly enjoyable, I will definitely be reading more of her work because I was really taken in with her style of writing, and that's why I continued, even though I kind of hated the plot and hated the characters. But essentially, it is about this house in Dover in the south of England that has its own personality. Like, there are whole sections of the book that are narrated by the house itself. And the house has this very creepy and codependent relationship with the women of the house, in that it basically drives them crazy and ultimately destroys them. And so what we are witnessing here is the latest woman in the family. She's actually a twin. She has a twin brother, and she is mentally unraveling. She's mentally unraveling. She has pica, which is a not often talked about eating disorder, and that was handled in a really interesting way, in a very beautiful way. But it was just not fun. Like, it was quite dark and heavy, and that's fact. Like, I'm not against reading dark books, but I need there to be some fun and some lightness and some drama to balance it out, and it was just all quite stark and dark. A good book, but just not really one for me, or not for the mood that I was in at the time of reading. The days are getting colder. Name a short, heartwarming read that could warm up somebody's cold and rainy night. Okay, so definitely The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. So that is a book that I read earlier this year, and it is told entirely in verse. It's like a coming of age story, starting with this young boy's birth and chronicling his life as like this mixed race boy in the city, who then goes off to university, uncovering his sexuality, learning that he wants to be a drag artist, and like just that whole experience. Very stunning, very quick read, gives you all of the warm fuzzy feelings. And of course there are sad moments, there are dark moments, but overall I would say that it's a heartwarming read. Also the Tea Dragon series. So I recently read the 3 Tea Dragon books. So that is the Tea Dragon Society, the Tea Dragon Festival, and the Tea Dragon Tapestry. And they're actually available on Kindle Unlimited. So I got them and read them on my iPad. But they're graphic novels aimed at children, and they are just beautiful. The artwork is stunning. The dragons are so cute. The stories are lovely. The level of inclusivity is pristine. Absolutely immaculate. Loved it. Really heartwarming and very, very quick. And then if you want something that's a little bit less quick but equally heartwarming, A Little Love Song by Michelle Magorian. I think it's actually here. Yeah. So this is one of my all-time faves from when I was a kid. I absolutely love this book. But it's about these 2 teenage sisters who, I should say it's set in World War II, and it's about these 2 teenage sisters who go and live in the countryside. So they go to stay in this cottage to get away from the city, where obviously the bombings are all happening, and it's about them adjusting to both wartime and being in this rural environment. And while they're there, one of the sisters discovers this locked room, and she gets inside of this room and she finds all of these things. Like, she finds all of these dresses from I think like 50 years ago, something like that. So it would have been like early like 1900. She finds all of these dresses, she finds these books, she finds these journals, and she starts reading these journals that she finds. And so we start getting her like 1940s story and the story of our other protagonist set in the 1900s. And there are heartbreaking moments, there are heartwarming moments. It's just delicious, and I think I'm actually going to keep this out to reread it because it's been a while and it is really just one of my loves. Okay, fall returns every year. Name an old favourite that you'd like to return to soon. Well, I just gave that away, didn't I? Fall is the perfect time for cozy reading nights. Share your favourite cozy reading accessories. Do dogs count as an accessory? Because I do love just like lying on the couch with a dog the full length of my body while I'm reading. That's just lovely. But if the dogs are not available, then I have to have a blanket, I have to have a hot water bottle, and I have to have a cuppa. Do you like my autumnal new mug? It's almost the size of my face. And then just to make it a bit more of a sensory experience, sometimes I like to light scented candles or incense or wax melts, and then I will also have something to listen to while I read. So occasionally I will have ASMR rooms on, or I will watch reading sprints. And then I do have a bunch of different playlists depending on my mood and also what I'm reading that I'll listen to. But I don't necessarily read in silence unless I'm in bed. And that brings us to the end of the finally fall book tag. So now let's move on to the end of year book. Are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? Yes. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. I think I'm about a third of the way through. I wasn't not enjoying it. I think I started reading it when I've been in a bit of a slump. So September and October for me have been very, very slumpy months. And that's when I started reading it. So because I was already in a slump, and Addie LaRue is quite a lovely, gentle, slow-paced book, it wasn't the right time. So I will definitely be coming back to that and finishing it, hopefully by the end of the year. Also, and then 2 audiobooks. Love in Colour by Bolu Babalola, which is stunning. It's a collection of short stories that are, do we still call them short stories when they're like myths and legends? Well, okay, they're mythological stories, but retold. So it's mythology from all different cultures, retold with the protagonists being people of colour. And it's beautifully written, it's beautifully read, really enjoying it. But as always, my issue with short stories is I don't have that same compulsion to keep reading or to keep listening. Like, I'll listen to one, and then when it comes to the end, I feel very complete. I don't necessarily just roll into the next one. And I think that's why it's just taking me a while to move through the whole collection. And then the other audiobook that I'm partway through is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I don't really have a reason that I stopped listening to that, other than I kind of just stopped listening to audiobooks for a while. And I got into a really like big romance mood, so I was just reading romances all the time, and if I was listening to audiobooks, it was romances, which that is very much not, but I would like to finish it before the end of the year. Do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? Not really, because honestly, I will read bits of anything throughout the whole year. Like, I would love to be that kind of person who has really thematic TBRs, but that's not me. I'm very much a mood reader, and I'm learning that more and more. I keep trying to set these TBRs for myself, but if I don't feel like reading the books, I just won't read the books. And that's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, because I want to be a good booktuber and I'm just not. All that to say, no, I don't really have a book that I would describe as autumnal to transition me to the end of the year, unless we count thrillers as autumnal books, because I'm in a very like thriller mood at the moment, and I'm about to start reading Ripper by Isabel Allende. So if I have to pick an answer, that's going to be my answer. Ripper by Isabel Allende. Okay. Is there a book that you think could still shock you and become your favourite book of the year? Ripper by Isabel Allende. I mean, I'm half kidding. Half, yes, it really could, because Isabel Allende has written one of my very favourite books of all time, of Love and Shadow, and so she completely has the capacity to smash everything that I have read so far out of the running. However, I have read some really fabulous books this year, so it might be tricky. And then in addition, I also do want to read Daisy Jones and the Six by the end of this year, which I just have a feeling I'm really gonna love. So that has possibility, but I'm not going to hold on to that expectation, because sometimes if you set expectations for yourself, you just end up disappointed, and nobody wants that. Okay. Have you already started making reading plans for 2022? Kind of, yes. So I haven't necessarily picked books that I want to read or set anything too in stone, but I have started thinking about my reading goals for 2022. So in the past, my goals have largely been around like number of books that I want to read. Like, there've been a couple of other things here and there, but for the most part it's number of books. And this time I'm just being really thoughtful about what I want my aims to be for 2022, because while yes, I would like to have an annual target, I would also like to challenge myself in other ways this year. So I know that something that I really want to do in 2022 is to read more non-fiction. In years past, I read pretty much nothing but non-fiction, so I challenged myself to read more fiction, and now we've gone to the other extreme. So in 2022, I want to bring back a sense of balance between fiction and non-fiction. And there are a few other things that I have in the back of my mind, but I will definitely film a more comprehensive video when I'm really clear on what I want to work on over the span of the year. So there you have it, my answers to both the Finally Fall book tag and the end of year book tag. I would love to see your responses to both of these tags. So if you have already done it, if you've already filmed one of these videos, then please just mention it in the comments below, and I'll come and give you some love. So do all the usual things: like, comment, subscribe, give me validation on the internet, and I will talk to you soon.